You can take control.
Yep. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a special edition of the Batter Up podcast, part of the Sports Insanity Network, sponsored by Halpern's Cards and Collectibles. I am Mike Rifkin. I got a whole crew tonight. The Patchman's here, the old ops guy's here, and a special guest from the Last Word on Sports.com website, my good friend Evan Mazza. Evan, good to see you. First time in a long time.
It is. It's been a long time,
I
Mikey.
was BSing with, but you I have not physically spoken to in a while.
It is great to see you, Mike. It's great to see you. I enjoy every single pun that comes out of your mouth because you're a genius. It's been a long time, buddy. How you doing?
Music to my ears. The puns might be loud tonight.
What was the can help pun you had? What was the can help pun you had today or last night?
The kind of deal was brewing. So yeah, he used the Brewers in there, or kind of made his mark on the Mets organization.
Yeah. Listen,
if we're gonna get into pun talk, we're gonna get distracted from baseball. And I see Mark's kind of gritting his teeth right now.
What's left of them? They're mostly down to stumps after this season.
All right, we're gonna dive right into.
You got to enjoy David Pearson, man, for the rest of the year.
We're going to dive right in. MLB trade deadline. There will be a heavy central focus on the Mets because 3/4 of this group are Mets fans. Sorry, Patch, we had to surround you.
That's all right.
But we will cover everything else that happened today, the MLB trade deadline. But we'll start with the big one. The Mets entered the season with 2 Hall of Famers on their pitching staff. They now have a grand total of 0 Hall of Famers on that pitching staff, along with Carlos Carrasco, who I don't know what he belongs in his own category. The Mets have traded Justin Verlander to the Houston Astros in exchange for outfield prospects Drew Gilbert and Ryan Clifford, the Big Red Dog. And if that is not Ryan Clifford's nickname, we're going to have real problems.
Movie?
And by all accounts, these guys were the 2 of the top prospects in the Astro system. Mark, I'll start with you. The initial reaction to Justin Verlander going back to Houston.
Not surprised. However, kind of was glad it was open in public with the kids at the pool. So I really couldn't give my initial reaction out loud there. The answer really is what Steve Cohen allegedly said to Max Scherzer, is that the Mets will not be contending for 2 years, and was giving them both their option. Questions are whether Cohen actually said this or yes or no. We don't know. Let's put it this way. There's nothing we're going to do to change it. And Drew Gilbert, let me tell you, what a grab for no offense, sorry, Justin, for a 6-month lease. You get probably one of the best outfield prospects in baseball right now. And that is a position the Mets need to fill. So a lot of anger, a lot of excitement with seeing some of the actual grab back.
Evan?
I guess for me, it's surprising because I saw the Mets this year and I'm like, okay, if they're serious about contending for 2024 and you are going to have the Cell Festival, as I like to call it, because boy, this was a heck of a Cell Festival. Would have been even crazier if they would have given away Nevares or Brooks Raley, because I thought Raley was going to go too. I thought Raley was going to get traded too.
I think Nevares might still go to Arizona tonight.
Possible. It's possible. You know, Raley, I thought Raley for sure was going to get dealt. You know, I thought so. But with Verlander, it was, okay, if you want to compete, you're going to have one of them. I figured you're going to have one of Verlander or Scherzer. Scherzer's dealt. Verlander's still there. I'm going to be like, okay, all right, you can keep Verlander, go into free agency. Obviously, the big fish is Shohei Ohtani, not a guarantee, but that's the big fish. And an otherwise free agency pond that's like very slim pickings, other than Marcus Stroman, which we all know it's not just the bridge that got burned, it was a nuclear bomb that got burned between these two sides. It ain't happening. So you're left with Shohei Ohtani and what, Martin Perez, Andrew Haney, Julio Arias. It's not very slim picking. It's very
Lance
obviously
Lynn.
there's Lance Lynn. Obviously there is the pitcher. I apologize. There is the pitcher from Japan that they're looking at too, and obviously with connections to Kodai, they signed Kodai Senga, so maybe they will look to get him. But I figure if they're serious about contending, you keep Verlander, unless the price is right, unless it's a deal you can't refuse. But I felt that the Mets would want to contend for next year. Dealing Verlander, and I tweeted this before, I tweeted this after the deal happened. Dealing Verlander tells me you're punting on 2024. It tells me that it's over, that you're just gonna run with next year and just see what happens. Now, Billy Epler essentially told, this is what Scherzer said. Scherzer tells the press, tells the Athletic that this is what Billy Epler told them, that they're going to go on a bit of a two-year rebuild. Billy then goes on and says just before the game today, and he says, hey, I will do my best to field a contending team. Actions speak louder than words. So we'll find out. We'll find out come the winter time. But I was surprised that they still traded Verlander after the Scherzer deal.
I think the word I would use is disappointed, because there was this high expectation of this team. They won 101 games last year, and we look forward to this year, and nothing's happened. And you go, okay, they're hanging around. They are the Counting Crows hanging around. That's what they're doing at this point. Right. And I think Scherzer, I don't want to say he burned his bridge, but I think Scherzer's comments after his start Friday night when the Robertson deal came through, that was like, okay, that's the straw. You're publicly saying, I have to talk to Steve Cohen, and I've got to publicly talk to Billy Epler. To me, that signifies maybe they're not rebuilding. Maybe it's a max thing. And then you hear Verlander after his start Sunday, well, I haven't had those conversations yet. And Verlander seemed genuine in the fact of he kept talking about being here, wanting to be here. And it was like, to your point, next year the rotation is Verlander, Senga as the top two. And we're okay going into that.
Yeah.
Then you make this deal and then you make this U-turn today, and he's dealt to the Astros for these two prospects. And to your point, Evan, you're going through the free agency market, and I'm going, well, think of all the other deals the Mets have made. Canna got dealt for a young pitcher.
Right.
Eduardo Escobar got dealt for two young pitchers. Tommy Pham got dealt for a minor league shortstop. Scherzer's dealt for Ronald Acuna's brother, Luis Angel Acuna, another shortstop. Then you throw in guys like Mauricio. And it's like, okay, then you have a Jet Williams. Up the middle, there's a lot of depth up the middle, which makes me go the other route. What if you focused on a trade this winter? And the name popped up to me today, and I was like, son of a gun, that's the move. Dylan Cease.
And the White Sox were shopping him earlier. I saw those reports
today.
They were shopping.
Listen, the White Sox for the second straight year are bad. For whatever the reason is, they're bad. If they're really serious about a Dylan Cease move, if you can package something in there to their liking, you get 2 years of control minimum of Dylan Cease and Senga. Then you go Peterson and McGill. The rest of this year is an audition for those two guys.
Sure.
Carlos Carrasco's not going to be there, so that's off the table. But you're looking at a pretty decent rotation depending on Peterson, McGill, and if you go get a Dylan Cease. That's something that you can go into. Okay, 2024 may not be as bad as we think, but you're right when you say for Billy Epler, actions speak louder than words, because this is actually on the hands of Billy Epler. You said before we went live, last year's trade deadline failed miserably. Darren Ruff, I had the same amount of hits as a Met as Darren Ruff. Think about that for a minute. Daniel Vogelback can't hit his weight, for Pete's sake. And Tyler Naquin, I don't even know what happened to Tyler Naquin.
Michael Gibbons too.
All of that, right. So all of that was done. Then this winter, I think a lot of Met fans knew you had to get something to go with Scherzer, and they get Verlander Senga. But most Met fans knew they had to get another bat. And outside of the Correa thing, which, listen, we won't get into it because we don't know, we're not doctors. They don't have impact bats. It's Lindor, it's Alonso, and it's the 20-year-old Alvarez that's the impact bats, and you weren't counting on that this year. So I'm intrigued by the direction of the offseason for the Mets as opposed to where they are now. And Evan, you said it, they're only 6 out. And they would be the team, because we know this, they would be the team to flip off the fan base and go on some massive, stupid run and then get into the playoffs.
I think didn't Billy, and I think Billy even said that what he told Scherzer was, we're going to be a low spending team. We're not going to go out there and be crazy spending in the offseason. What that means, we'll find out. Obviously Met fans, I'm sure, will hear that and go, Wilpons. But that's not going to be the case now with Steve Cohen. But
No.
let's see. We'll see how far Epler takes that quote.
Not to jump in fast, because the good old Vision has not spoken to us tonight. When you look at the press conference that Billy Epler gave tonight, and I commented to Mike on this a little before I joined the room after kicking and screaming for about 5 minutes, it looked like he was forced to read what he was saying, because the looks on his face looks like a guy who hasn't gone to the bathroom for a month to a guy who's like, who wrote this crap for me? He did not want to talk about it. You could see it. You could see he did not want to dig in. He kept on skirting issues. He knows he's at the center of this, because you can blame the owner like Mets fans did all they want with the Wilpons. They're not going to go after Cohen because they know Cohen can easily just go and sign Ohtani by snapping his fingers. He has it in his wallet. He hands it out in cash. It's not a problem for him. The problem is right now is you had, like I said, 2 Hall of Fame pitchers on this staff at the start of this season. We have basically a minor league pitching system, and we're going to have to grill it up and eat it. But yes, to screw everybody over, the Mets could go and win in a spot into the playoffs would be nice.
And then one more thing, and then I'll get Patch involved, and then we'll flip side it to the Astros. The quotes from Francisco Lindor saying he wants to be here. That's a refresher. And that's great because, you signed him 10 years, big money. I understand why Verlander and Scherzer are here, and they're still getting paid by the Mets. The next chunk of money that has to go has a designated spot. It goes to the first baseman.
Yes.
Because that's got to be the priority of the winter is locking up Pete Alonso. And so yes. I think, Evan, when I hear what you said, what Billy Epler said, hey, we're not going to spend a ton in free agency, my mind goes, okay, we're going to keep our own here. And when that money's going to the first baseman in Pete Alonso, we've spent the money outside with Scherzer, Verlander, Senga. Canna's book off the books. Marte's off the books in 2 years unless you can move that contract. And that's where I kind of like what Steve Cohen has done. He hasn't overly been aggressive and signing guys to 7, 8, 9-year contracts. The only one he gave out really was Lindor.
Yeah.
And right now that's paid out.
Yes.
Paid off.
Two things. Pay Alonso and put the C on Lindor.
I
Good to see on either one of them.
Yeah,
I do it on
I
Lindor.
don't disagree with you at all, Evan. I believe Lindor pretty much deserves it as much as Pete. It's just hard to decide. I would be pro Pete, but I don't disagree that Lindor deserves it as well.
I've always been in favor of homegrown guys, and that's just me. But it's a very interesting conversation that we could totally have at a different point. But Patch, we have not gotten you involved. I don't apologize for that. But do you have anything you want to say on this outside of the fact of
Besides the
Met
fact
fans
that
just
you are a
complaining?
Nationals fan? You're muted.
You're
too.
still muted.
that was our expletive for the podcast. Patch was good enough to make sure he was muted for it.
Yes, absolutely. Me dropping explicit bombs off of YouTube, make sure we don't get pulled off the air. But you imagine me being a Nationals fan. My team can win a World Series in this millennium. Mark, just remember that.
Fair enough.
Just saying. The Mets, the Mets. This was the Mets' year, I think, to win a World Series. They had the pitching, had the outfield, had the batters. They had a mix of power and contact hitting where they could play the small ball if needed and hit the long ball if needed too. Unlike the Yankees, we can get the Yankees later.
Well, we will get to the Yankees later.
Unfortunately,
Renee.
Shout out. Unfortunately, I think the downfall for the Mets started when Diaz went down in WBC. That sucked the win out of the sails of the Mets. And then it was just, okay, maybe the Mets can still get there, get in. Maybe they can win the East against, a great Braves team and a great Phillies team. I'm not going to throw the Nationals in the conversation because the Nationals suck, in my opinion.
And the Marlins have improved. Let's not
the
forget.
Marlins improved. The Nationals were going to be the bottom rung of this division. I'll throw that right in there now, and I guarantee that the next few seasons. It's just weird because heading in the All-Star break, the Mets were in the mix still, and then all of a sudden it was like, all right, we're just going to fire sale and be done with it. I'm like, all right. I don't understand it. It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off. But like Scherzer going, I could see
June for it.
Scherzer, I could maybe see him waiving his no trade to get out of there. Maybe he just wants to get out of the situation. Verlander going surprised me because I think Verlander was in for the long run with his contract, and then him just getting shit back off to Houston. That made me laugh. I'm like, Houston, why'd you just pay the man to keep him?
Well, the Mets won that
instead of
trade.
giving two prospects.
And you give up your top two prospects in the process. It's like,
I'm sorry, I don't see much genius in baseball today, but this was a genius move. Just that trade. The rest of it, we're still eating and grilling.
Well, so let's get right into this because Scherzer goes to the Rangers, Verlander goes to the Astros. Who's in the better spot right now, the Rangers or the Astros?
Ooh.
Boom.
It's a very tough question to
That's
answer.
hosting for you.
You have,
I don't think it's a hard question to answer, to be honest with
Astros, because they got a familiar face. Verlander's now back in the fold. They won a couple of championships with him, and the Astros are the Astros. That's just
No, that's a very good point.
that would part of the reason I would say the Astros too. And the other part of it is another Met legend factors into this. If Jacob deGrom's healthy, it's a different story for the Texas Rangers.
Is
But
Scherzer
now
a Ranger?
I'm going into a
Is Scherzer a Ranger if deGrom is there?
Possibly. That's an excellent
who
question.
knows?
At this point, let's say the records are the same, no change in the records, I'd say the Mets still make the same deal. Scherzer goes and pitches with deGrom, and the Mets clear up payroll money for possibly an Ohtani and signing Pete Alonso run. That's a possibility out there, not guaranteed.
Well, here's the other part. If deGrom's healthy, are the Rangers even interested? That's the other part of that.
Depends on where.
That's
why I said the records have to be the same right now. That's the only way it would make sense.
Well, And here's the part, and this is where I also agree with Evan that I think it's the Astros. It's the Astros have been banged up all year, whether it's the pitching staff, Alvarez and Altuve just got back. Jose Abreu was not good until probably about a month ago. Now he's just been great. The Rangers had an opportunity here to bury the Astros, bury them deep. They couldn't see the Comets coming. But the Astros said, you know what? We've been here. We've done it. Now, you're right, Evan. Think about how that rotation lines up in a playoff series. Verlander, Framber Valdez, and Christian Javier. In a playoff series, that's
That's the
scary.
7-game series you can win right there.
Plus, they added to the bullpen with Graveman. Plus, that lineup's going to score runs.
Yep.
The question becomes,
Dusty.
sorry, Mike.
Go ahead.
No, the question becomes is of all these prospects, and just looking at them, it's not a who's who. It's actually singled out just right. And if I were to put this team into a cast for, let's say, 2.5 years out, so we're talking initially 2026, we're going one more year out. There is no team that can contend. The Mets are going to have to trade some of the haul they just got. But the question is going to be which pieces to move. Drew Gilbert, to me, was an amazing grab. This kid has a very big potential in the major leagues. So I see him almost like Pete Crow Armstrong. That's where I place him. And I see the Mets not letting that go again.
And that was a bad deal.
Yes. I mean, look, the kid wasn't even in the organization, a few months before, whether it was his elbow or his shoulder that needed complete surgery. Now he's healthy and he's got to write his own ticket. He doesn't have anyone to contend with right now. He's not behind everybody in the Mets organization. Now he's ahead of the game. Yeah. So now the sky's the limit for him.
And how many pitchers did the Mets draft? What was it, 10, 11? If I think back to the draft, I think it was double digits.
They drafted in the double digits.
And as long as the last name isn't
moved their top prospect, Blake Tidwell, he just went to Double-A.
Yeah.
As long as the name doesn't rhyme with knocker, I'm good.
We know it's one of the greatest movies of all time. Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle. If you don't get the joke off of that, I'm sorry. We'll stay in the NL East. Because I talked a little bit about the Marlins before, and the Marlins added some impact bats here. They had Jake Berger from the White Sox in exchange for left-handed pitcher. I'm not making this up. Jake Eater. And then right before the deadline, they made a deal with the Guardians to get Josh Bell for Gene Segura and Khalil Watson. I said the Indians. The Guardians for Khalil Watson and Gene Segura. Segura will be released by the Guardians, and they'll eat the rest of the money. So the Marlins had some impact bats here, trying to make the playoffs and continue their surprise run.
As my comment to Mike before we went live, when I hadn't seen the Josh Bell news, he'd sent it to me, and I said, it's reminding me all too convenient lately. Reminded me of a player who came to the Marlins by the name of Piazza. How long he was actually there before he was a Met. This just, to me, seems all too convenient and too right there. And the Mets are in need of second base help. And they just grabbed one of the biggest hauls, not only in the draft, but look at the prospects they could turn around and make a move with. That's only if that's the plan. Right. You don't have to keep all of them, but if you can pick up, that would be amazing.
I have thoughts on the Marlins here.
I love the Josh Bell trade. Maybe it's because I'm a Josh Bell guy. I love a big power hitting, switch hitting guy. But
so was Patch at one point.
Yeah, that's what the Marlins need. That's what the Marlins need. They needed a big power guy, and I thought the Josh Bell deal was a good one. I really liked that. I thought that was a steal, and I love seeing the Marlins, for the love of Pete, actually try to win. Like, I love that. Like, This is a Marlins team that should try to win. This is a Marlins team that should try to buy and win and not sell off like crazy every couple of years, whatever it is. So I like the Josh Bell move. I thought that was a good one for them. And I thought was it Josh Bell and
Jake Berger.
Jake Berger. Yes. See, again, Chicago White Sox. I was expecting them. They trade Jake Berger. They trade. I was looking at the White Sox. I'm thinking, are they really going to go just full on sell? I thought Tim Anderson was going to get dealt. I thought Anderson was going to,
and he still could.
yeah. So like Mike said before, I'm shocked with the White Sox. I really thought the White Sox would win the AL Central, but yeah, Jake Berger, Josh Bell. I love that for Miami. I love that. Get power bats. And especially since you're in the division with the Braves to hit home runs every 5 seconds. They might have hit a home run just now. But I love that, getting 2 guys like that, and especially Josh Bell. And I like seeing the Marlins buy. It's good. It's refreshing.
When you see these small market teams buy, it gives the game, it makes the game better. I agree with you on that. And I love Josh Bell. I thought that was a great sign for the Guardians. Put him behind Jose Ramirez. It just, for whatever reason, it didn't work out there for him. But it also didn't work out when he left Washington to go to San Diego with Soto. So maybe him going to Miami, a place where he's not the center of attention, that'll also benefit him. The Marlins have this really good pitching staff. I understand Sandy Alcantara hasn't had the best year after he had what he did last year. This team could pitch. Bullpen's not terrible. They needed thump. But again, Evan, I'm with you. The White Sox, it's confusion. Jake Berger's got years of control. And
Right.
I guess the White Sox wanted to go vegan and didn't want any more burgers. But I mean, I don't get it personally.
I saw Jake Berger tell them, like, why Jake Berger? Why?
Right. Like you said, Tim Anderson could get what was being talked about. Dylan Cease was being talked about. No one wants to mention Yohan Moncada's name. And he's been a bust ever since they traded Chris Sale for him. So
Eloy got interest.
They're a team also this winter. They're fascinating because what direction should they go in? Because on paper, they're the most talented team in the AL Central.
Without question.
Not the Twins, not the Guardians, not Lord's favorite team, the Royals, and certainly not the Tigers. By the way, the Tigers made news. They trade Michael Lorenzen to the Phillies, and then Eduardo Rodriguez, another pitcher, refused to go to the Dodgers because they were on his no trade list.
And you can't make this stuff up. You can't make this stuff up in this day and age. I'm sorry. I maybe understand if you had 20 years in the league and you're someone like Scherzer, Verlander, whatever, you can have a no trade clause. Until you are a guaranteed Hall of Famer, let's get rid of it. Oh, no trade clauses. Send them wherever. They don't want to play. I'm sure there are 10,000 other kids who are waiting to take that chance.
I wouldn't say a Hall of Famer. At least win a World Series, and then you can have.
He did. Eduardo Rodriguez won with the Red Sox.
Well, then again, go win another one. Go win another one, and then you can have that in your contract.
Cy Young. There you can put that in there. If you have a Cy Young award, you can do that.
I mean,
who want to go play with the Dodgers? The Dodgers.
They're going to win.
It's a guaranteed playoff berth and a guaranteed possibility of making a World Series appearance again.
I don't want to play with the Yankees. I don't want to play with the Yankees. I don't want to play with the Red Sox. I don't want to play with the Dodgers. I don't want to play with the the Braves. Why?
And come out live and say, I hate money. That's all.
I mean, at this moment, I think nobody wants to play with the Yankees.
On MLB Network, why didn't the Tigers at first just call them and say, "Hey, we're talking to the Dodgers. We know they're on your no trade list. Will you be willing to go there?" Because at some point you have to figure out this deal. You don't go down the deal and say, "Okay, we've got a deal," and then call the player and say, "Hey, are you willing to waive the no trade?" Because if he says no, it blows up in your face legitimately.
Correct.
You're the kid in chemistry class who no one wants to be partners with.
Yeah. Great. I love chemistry. No.
I didn't take it, so.
Sorry. The White Sox, it doesn't matter what team is selling off. These guys wouldn't be up at this level if they didn't earn at some point or deserve to be here. However, that doesn't mean they should be making more money than me. I'm sorry. No. Go join, who was it who just had their 10th kid? Philip Rivers' family. You don't want money? Go join them. Just add to the collection. It's just hard to get around what's going on in sports. And that's all as a conclusion, considering we're in baseball and we can hand out billion-dollar contracts here.
Oh my God. We got a Philip Rivers name drop on here.
Sorry, I know.
All right.
Couldn't resist.
It's all good.
We getting a Cromartie name
Okay.
drop next?
Good. While we're at it, TJ Ushmanzada. We'll drop a
Let's
Ushmanzada.
go.
We're right at it. Just
Love Hushman's on.
random people, just name drop anybody. Let's go to the AL East for a second. We'll get to the other New York team. We promise.
The American League, the
But the
American League
Or-
East, led by the chaos known as the Baltimore Orioles. They are chaos.
I
They're
picked them to
chaos,
go far.
and they added to their rotation by adding Jack Flaherty from the
Yeah.
Cardinals for 3 prospects. They were the one team, I think, coming into this. I know everyone talked about the Reds. I don't know if the Reds believe in the Reds, just based on where they're at, and they know they're going to get Hunter Green back at some point. But the Orioles were the team that said they needed someone at the top of the rotation. If the Cubs were going to sell, it should have been Stroman. I think I did read they were in on Verlander at one point, and no one knew if Verlander would waive his no trade, but they were linked to Dylan Cease as well. But now they wind up with Jack Flaherty. And Evan, you mentioned it. They're chaos, and they're fun chaos.
They are fun chaos. I definitely saw them being a playoff team this year. I saw the team and I'm like, this is good. This is a good young team. Adley, Gunnar, and they got more kids coming. I picked them to win the wild card. They're good enough to go to the World Series, I think.
I think Baltimore is very talented, beyond talented. What team wouldn't kill with 3 players with Rutschman? You can't limit it to 3. Forget it. That team is a stud right now. And any team that wanted to trade with them and any player that was stupid enough to say no, you're looking at the head of the AL East for a few years to come.
We were saying that about Toronto.
With the loss of Bichette, it's a little bit.
But still, long term, they're in a good spot. Tampa's always in this conversation. The Red Sox have been better than I think most people thought this year. Then there are the Yankees again. We'll get to them. But to go on Evan's point about the Orioles and Mark's point, I've said this multiple times. I've written about it. You can check it out on the network's website. The Orioles should take the Braves approach. Buy out these kids' arbitration years and sign them to these long-term deals where you're not paying each guy 150, 160 million. You'll get some of these steals of deals. Look at the Braves and Acuna's contract. Look at Ozzie Albies' contract.
Well, that's the contract. Yeah.
I mean,
How does it
you're
land?
signing these guys for 100 million, 60 million. Like, let's keep this group together. That way, in 5 years, you're not torn between, do I sign Adley Rutschman long-term? Do I sign Gunnar Henderson long-term? And I got to decide, like you did, Chris Davis versus Manny Machado. And we know how that worked out.
Of the 2 names, though.
I was a big Chris Davis guy.
So was I in
That was
fantasy.
Chris Davis.
I was in fantasy league for a couple of times, but God, talk about a horrible contract. Him and
They
Adam
set them
Dunn.
back, and look where they are now.
You're talking
and
about
Adam
terrible
Dunn, both hit
contracts.
under
The Mets. You're talking about terrible contracts. The Mets have offered terrible contracts.
But it never
Oh,
set them
they're
back.
still paying one out with another 10 years to go.
Hey, that's my boy Bobby Bo.
Like Bobby Bo.
That's my favorite.
Shut up, Bobby
top
Bo.
We
Top
just
5
celebrated
favorite
him.
holidays.
Top 5 favorite holiday.
Top 5 favorite holidays.
Christmas, Thanksgiving, Halloween, July 4th, Ibania Day.
Bobby
Bonilla.
Day.
The new Mount
wait.
Rushmore of
You
all
haven't set
holidays,
fireworks
Bobby
off on the
Bonilla's
4th
in the center.
July. You set off July 1st. Why? Bobby Bonilla Day.
Becomes a federal holiday. We
Yeah.
get a parade for the guy who has robbed one organization for this long.
Didn't he? I think it was the Binghamton Rumble Ponies. Didn't they? I think they did like an advertisement for it. It was like they did a rally. It was a July 1st, and they did like a raffle for any fan. And if that fan wins said raffle, I think they get like $11 every year. Like 11.
Damn, where was I? I would have bought all the tickets.
Oh my.
I'm like, that's genius.
This also coming from a guy who won a 50-50 at Dutchess Stadium once.
All right. So we're gonna stay in the AL East because we did promise we will talk a little Yankees. The Yankees made one move today. They got Kenyon Middleton from the White Sox in exchange for Juan. I'm hoping I'm saying this right. Corella.
I believe you're
assuming
right.
that's a minor league pitcher. But that was the one move the Yankees have made. They were the last team to make a trade between July 1st and now. And they're sitting right now in last place in the AL East.
Hey, Mike, can you just repeat that for me 1 second? The Yankees traded who for who? Again, just one more
The
time.
Yankees traded Juan Corella to the White Sox in exchange for Kenyon Middleton. Both, I believe, are relievers.
Okay, so I did hear you right. Okay.
Yes.
Does anybody see the jersey I'm wearing? It's Flint Tropics tonight because I need a real team to actually count on. This sounds like being traded for Woody Harrelson for the washing machine. I mean, does this even have to be reported by ESPN? Can we just let it go? We'll read it in the paper somewhere big tomorrow anyway because it'll capture 2 long columns. Miss me that much, huh, Mike?
Listen, I thought that was fantastic, but listen, I think this goes to a bigger conversation than just who cares. So, like I said, the Yankees are in last place of the East, but they're only 3.5 out of the wild card. And let's be real honest here, because that's what we are. Honesty is always the best policy. The Yankees have real problems, and it doesn't stem from Aaron Judge. And it doesn't stem from his toe. It doesn't stem on the right arm of Garrett Cole. It stems on the New York Yankees' arrogance. The arrogance that allows you to keep employing Aaron, I love the movie Here Comes the Boon, and Brian Cashman, who still thinks it's 2003.
And thinks he has a payroll of $400 million.
And listen, I get it. Brian Cashman is going to probably go to the Hall of Fame. And I understand what he's meant as a Yankee. That doesn't mean he's a good general manager anymore. He took on the entire contract of Giancarlo Stanton for his buddy Derek Jeter. Giancarlo Stanton's only hitting up 190 something. Maybe he's a little over 200. I know when he hits him, it goes out. But he's not consistent. DJ LeMahieu. Go ahead, Mark.
No. Go.
DJ LeMahieu, he's gotten old on his contract. Anthony Rizzo hasn't done anything with Judge in the lineup, with Judge out of the lineup. Gleyber Torres, you talk about Gleyber Day. He hasn't done much. Volpe's had a decent rookie year, but he's on a downswing right now, and it's a lot to put a pressure on that kid. And then you go to the outfield. Judge, Harrison Bader's been a good player for him. Left field's a hole because of the ghost of Aaron Hicks. So you're putting pressure on a rotation. Hey, I need you to go give up 1 or 2 runs because that's all we're scoring. Well, guess what? When Garrett Cole pitches, that can happen. Carlos Rodon, tonight, not a good start. That's 3 out of 4. Domingo Herman, he's got something on his armpit, but he can pitch out of the bullpen.
That was weird.
Luis Severino, he says he felt like the worst pitcher in baseball Sunday night. Well, when you don't record outs in the first inning and you give up a 7 spot, you're not the best pitcher in baseball.
Luis Severino is the Yankees version of the last year of Noah Syndergaard. He is Noah Syndergaard now.
You get a hat tip for that.
Used to be a really good pitcher.
Not a bad thought.
Used to be a really good, and I know that's easy because it's Mets Yankees, obviously, but that is a really good pitcher who at a time was an ace of a staff. And injuries, injuries, all that stuff does happen. A couple of years have passed, and he has nothing left. He's not even. And I was a big Severino fan in his prime during those years where he was pretty much the ace of the Yankee staff. I like Sevy. God, he's not even it stinks to say, but like Syndergaard, he's not a starting pitcher right now.
Let's face it, the only name on the Yankees that's worth mentioning is Herman. He actually did something this year. He threw a great game against the friggin' Oakland Athletics, and we are supposed to hoist him in the royal chair? Come on. If it was Garrett Cole, that's something. But
honestly, the biggest surprise is that the A's have only been no-hit once.
Well, that too.
They almost threw one earlier in the year.
Yeah.
They hadn't gone against the Mariners. And I don't know, Patch, we had this conversation SIP last night, short-term, long-term future, whose looks brighter, Mets versus the Yankees. And I worded it this way, and I'm going to word it again. Because the Mets don't have those long-term financial commitments that the Yankees do, it's the Mets. But the Yankees at any point can get hot and say, we know who we are. The problem is, if you look at the American League, and Evan, you brought it up, the Orioles aren't going anywhere. The Blue Jays aren't going anywhere. The Rays probably aren't going to go anywhere. The Red Sox, I don't know what their future entails. I'm tired of the White Sox. If you go to the West, the Astros are still really good. The Rangers are really good. I love the Seattle Mariners pitching staff, but they don't hit. It's hard to say you're going to dominate a league because the Yankees aren't judged on playoff appearances. The New York Yankees are judged on World Series appearances. And by the way, they haven't been to the World Series since 2009. You know who's been to the World Series since 2009? New York Mets, the Boston Red Sox,
the Washington Nationals.
Well, I'm just going on the 2 teams you hate the most if you're a Yankee fan. Yeah, they've been to the World Series more recently than the Yankees. The Rays have been to a World Series more recently.
I was about to say that the thorn in the backside of the Yankees right now have been the Rays too. The Rays have had a World Series appearance. You mentioned Rodon. Rodon played Yahtzee tonight. 4 innings pitched, 4 hits, 4 earned runs, 4 base on balls, 4 strikeouts. So he was playing Yahtzee.
Holy crap. I wonder if he was close to that and just said, wait, I need one more walk. Let me just walk this guy. You don't get stats like that. That's cool.
It's a fun stat today. And Mark, I keep alluding to it. The Yankees are heading towards that abysmal under 500. You think it's not going to happen. It's going to happen.
Not this year, though.
It's going to
happen. I don't think it'll happen this year.
Will that be the straw for Hal?
Finishing last place.
Cashman, I love you.
I mean,
Brian Cashman.
It's not
Aaron
an unfair
Boone.
question, Mike. It's not an unfair question at all. Is that the final straw? If the Yankees were to pull a massive thing, like Patch is saying, and finish not just last, how about, like he's saying, under 500? Mike saying, is that the last straw? Is that where either the Steinbrenner family comes together and says, obviously, we're not selling the team. Let's get rid of Grandpa Cashman. Let him go wheel down I-95 somewhere. And let's get a real-time GM who thinks a nowadays happening. Epler was the right move for the Mets. They moved on from a lot of people. We'll see what the Yankees are willing to do. If they're willing to let go of Cashman, even though it needs to happen.
Also, Matt Goodman from Twitter tweeted about Cashman's comments about the trade deadline, and Cashman goes, open quote, "We're in it to win it. We stayed the course because of that," close quote. And then under that, the guy says he mentioned the returns of Nestor Cortez and Jonathan Lagacia and boost
Loizaga.
thank you. As boost the rest of the way. And then this was the best play for us with the team we have still within striking distance. And that comes from
striking distance Yanks. Of what?
And this comes from Talking Yanks. And their caption of this was, "Are we watching the same team he is?"
Okay.
Here's the thing. Nestor
We need a breakdown.
Cortez is a good pitcher. Nestor Cortez is a good pitcher. Loizaga is a good bullpen. They don't hit. The pitching's not the problem for the New York Yankees. They don't hit. In that ballpark, they do not hit.
Which is
that's
crazy.
An anomaly.
Yeah, well, the four of us could go into that lineup. We might hit 4 through 7 or 4 through 8.
Give me a minute.
I'll probably hit 8 because of my Ricky Henderson-like speed.
Patch, because of your disability, you get to be on the side with the wheelchair for me after the ball hits me. And Patch will be there to run me out off the field.
All right. One last topic, then we can get into winners, losers if you want. We got to talk Ohtani. We've got to do it because you're doing yourself a disservice if you're not talking about it. The Angels said we're keeping him. And they go out, they go get Lucas Giolito. And Ronaldo Lopez from the White Sox, and they make a trade with the Rockies for Randall Grichuk and CJ Cron. And guess what? The Angels are 3.5 out of a wild card spot.
That being said,
they are 3 out of the wild card.
Okay. That being said, this to me is a team in panic mode, knowing he's gone. They're trying to do everything they can to make a World Series push now, because next year they know still with Trout money on that payroll, they can't afford to come anywhere near what some of these big market teams, may it be the Mets, may it be the Red Sox, may it be 100 teams. That would be the ultimate fun thing. I go to a Red Sox Yankee game and wear an Ohtani jersey. But personally, there is no way Los Angeles is keeping Shohei Ohtani with the possibility he being the $1 billion arm.
Ev, thoughts here on Ohtani staying?
I mean, I'm all for what the Angels are doing, man. It might not pay off. I don't think it's going to pay off. I don't think it's going to end in a World Series or anything like that. But you got to do something, right? It's Shohei Ohtani. You got to do something. Get CJ Cron. You try out Eduardo Escobar. I think they're supposed to DFA Escobar. I think. You try out. You get Cron. You get Grichuk. You get Giolito. You try. You just try. Is it going to work? No, because you still got to beat out the Astros and the Rangers in your own division. So it's all going to come down to what Shohei wants to do in the offseason. He's going to get a bucket load of money. This man is going to get a bucket load of money. Every team in baseball that's not Tampa, KC, etc., are going to want to get him. And if you're the Mets, yes, you should be all in. But every team should want him. Now, let's see what happens with Ohtani, because is he committed to staying in the West Coast? Because obviously reports are he wants to stay in the West Coast. So that's the Angels, Dodgers, etc. Or if the money talks, and that will lure him away to another team. So I'm all in on the Angels doing what they're doing. I love it. I think it's great. Should have happened sooner, because especially when you have two generational talents like Trout, and they're going to get Trout back soon. I'm all in what the Angels are doing. When it comes to Ohtani's free agency, I would like to see him back with the Angels because I think it's good for baseball that he's back with the Angels, good for the Angels and their fan base that he's back with the Angels. But money talks. If Shohei wants to get paid, he'll get paid. He's going to win MVP award. He's the best player since Griffey and Bonds in their primes.
And you just brought up a name. Your comment regarding the West Coast is absolutely 100% true. He does want to stay on the West Coast, but it's not going to be with the Angels. There's a few teams, Dodgers, like we said, but I would not count out a team like Seattle with the young roster they have to make a run at him if they can find a way to raise the money.
And they got the perfect pitch man for him. Use Ichiro as your pitch man. I'm serious. The communication, he can tell you how great Seattle's. Hell, I'll tell you how great Seattle is. I went to Seattle years ago. Great city. Great place. I think he'd love it. I'm with you, Ev, on this part. I want the Angels to get a wild card. I hope and I plead because you're right. This isn't for the Angels. This is for me. This is for us, the baseball fan. We want to see Shohei Ohtani. We want to see Mike Trout on the big stage. By the way, it's a crime that Mike Trout has only played in the playoffs once. It is an absolute crime. So if you get in with those two guys and the other offensive guys like Mickey Moniak, who's had a nice year for them.
Taylor Ward.
Taylor Ward, who's probably going to be out for a while after he got hit in the face the other day.
It's possible his season is now
on,
over as it
Angels.
now contains facial fractures.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Oof. Darn.
Terrible. But yeah, the Angels, listen, we're all going to be on Ohtani watch come the winter.
Yes.
Patch, anything here on Ohtani?
Smart move by the Angels. Milk it if you're going to be all in. Get the fans to come watch Ohtani. Come on. Smart business move, unlike the Yankees.
All right.
To Mark's point about Seattle,
Go ahead.
yeah, you don't think he heard those chants at the All-Star game?
Well, that's where I was going with it.
Yeah.
When you pick out a player as high a caliber as him, and you have the entire Seattle, whatever you want to call it, community, fan base, all around there, you can't tell me that's not a welcoming hearing to a possibility. And I'm listening to that, and all I'm saying is, oh crap. Because I read
they have the hype man, use Ichiro, and guess what? He gets to play the Mariners, so he knows the roster.
Exactly.
He knows that pitching staff with Castillo and Gilbert and man, if he's going there, they might have to trade a pitcher. I'd be all in on one of those young guys. I'm now convincing myself
could be the reason right there that they're standing pat is that, like Evan said, Ohtani could end up there. And could you imagine with him as your ace and this young staff to learn behind him? Come on.
If they have to trade a pitcher for that, that's
fine.
going to benefit someone. Oh
Yep.
man, I listen. I don't get excited much. It's a lie. If the Mariners are offering one of those young starters, I'm all in. Whether it's Gilbert or Bryce Miller, who's had a nice
Gilbert, I think, would be the
season.
most targeted first, as we talked about this the other night.
Or even George Kirby for the sake of Nintendo characters. But
Love the Kirby shout out.
I don't care. I'd be in. All right.
Mike,
We'll
you don't
end
get
this
excited about
really
the Dolphins?
quickly.
You gotta be excited about the Dolphins.
You know what, Ev? I get excited then Jalen Ramsey gets hurt. That's
You
where
get
I'm at.
excited about the Dolphins. Their quarterback can't think 5 feet in front of him because he can't see from all the concussion last year.
Too soon.
And you know what? Dow's still wrecking.
Listen, at least he knows how to work the clock. I'm like Dak. All right. One word,
Ooh.
winner or loser of the deadline. Mark, I'll start with you.
Winner of this deadline. Really, is there a winner? Really, right now, if you want to
In
look at
your
the
opinion.
in my opinion, I think the team that really made the smart moves are the Marlins. They didn't give up much. They grabbed a couple of nice pieces. Yeah, you have to be excited if you're Houston or Texas. You want to take out a small team who really made a big stride, Miami, to keep themselves where they are.
As for the loser,
Oh, that's sorry. As for the losers, it's kind of tough. I'm gonna put the Yankees up there because, mind you, yes, I'm in New York, so I can be a little bit biased on both teams. But with the state of the organization, how do you sit, even though 3.5 games out, and say, "Oh, we're gonna go far anyway"? So that's where I have it. The Marlins as the best, and the Yankees as the worst.
Ev?
I think if we're going winner via just prospects, it's the Mets. But again, we won't know that until another couple of years. In
Mhm.
terms of just stacking prospects, stacking the farm system, and just going on the Cell Fest and just embracing the Cell Festival, it's the Mets. But we'll find out in a couple of years. That's if this we're gonna once 2026, 27, even 25 happens, we're gonna look back at this deadline and we'll know about the Mets. Are they winners or are they losers? So in terms of prospect stacking, I'll say it's the Mets. My big winner is the Astros. I think getting Verlander back was, yeah, they had to give up 2 prospects, so I agree. Why not just resign them? But I still, again, this is the Astros. They're going to go for it. They should go for it. They got a great core, great team. Get back an ace. You now have Verlander, Valdez, and Javier all there. Perfect for a 5-7 game series. I think the Astros, as usual, are going to do their thing, and they're going to be the biggest out in that American League. Whoever takes them out can go to the World Series, but it's until someone beats them, they're the team to beat. Biggest loser. The Yankee one is good. I agree with the Yankee one. That's a good one. How about Atlanta?
Ooh.
How about
The
Atlanta?
team we did not mention
That's
much
kind
of.
of weird to say, right? Because they're 1 billion games over 500. They hit home runs like crazy. But it's like
They did
stand
add to the
power,
bullpen, though. Brad Hand,
did.
Pierce
Brad Hand, okay.
Johnson.
Okay.
I got to hand it to you. That's not a Brad move.
But it's like, I know it's weird to say that. Atlanta probably is going to be the favorites. Well, they will be the favorites once we hit to the playoffs. Man, go. And I know they won a World Series. So it's that you have that kind of like what the Nationals had. You have a World Series, so you have that in the back of your pocket. But man, you got Acuna, you got Albies, you got Riley, you got Olsen, you got all these guys that are here to really have a dynasty. Embrace it and go for it. You know, to be the dynasty that they weren't in the 90s, only getting that one title in 95 and losing those World Series in 96 and 99. Man, here's your opportunity to really go for it. Maybe the Braves prove me wrong. They hold the World Series trophy at the end of the year, but it's like, man, embrace it. You guys are good, really good. So,
Ooh. Pat, you got winners and a winner and a loser?
Texas winners. They're obviously pushing all the chips and finally get over that World Series hump and forget the past on how they couldn't get the job done in the past. Looking at biggest loser, the Yankees. It's the Yankees. The Yankees had an opportunity to. It would have salvaged them if they unloaded certain players and rebuild. As I've been stating, the Yankees just need to rebuild the next few years and maybe get ready in the late 2020s to win a World Series. But it's the Yankees. The Yankees can't. You know what? They couldn't hit water if they fell out of a boat right now.
It's true. Just go into the Hudson River and try to hit that.
No one
Try to
wants to
swim it.
swim in that either.
Hey, Kramer did once, so
Kramer did, yeah.
Kramer did, yes.
like, I feel bad for Aaron Judge. I feel bad for Judge. I almost want Judge to go to San Francisco now. It's like I wonder if Judge is like, man, maybe
I almost feel good
Arson Judge. I'm
good
sorry,
about
Arson.
Arson Judge more about Arson than I do Aaron. I feel great for our Judge. The Astros are a big one. The Marlins are a big one too. When you're talking winners, I think those are the two. I'm going to go with a different route. I'm going to go the Padres. They got Scott Barlow, the closer from the Royals, but they
Right.
stood pat outside of that. And to me, they're the one team. They're a powder keg, and they're ready to explode. They need to go on a massive run at some point to get into the playoffs. They have the talent to do it. And I think not doing much at this deadline signals, hey, we believe in you. Go out and make this run. The loser, listen, I would insult the Yankees more, but I think we did a number on them. I'm going to the White Sox because I don't know the direction of the team. You don't trade a Jake Berger for no reason. You don't offer Dylan Cease to teams for no reason. I'm very confused about the direction of the White Sox. And how about the Dodgers? Because, Evan, you brought it up with the Braves. The Braves are the best team in the National League. The Dodgers are probably the second best team in the National League. And they have that lineup, Mookie, Freeman, JD Martinez, who the Mets should have signed. That's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah.
But then you get into the pitching, and that's where I think they lost out here because now we don't know when Walker Ferris Bueller's coming back. Dustin Carrot Top May isn't coming back. So you're relying on Julio Arias, Clayton Kershaw, who everyone loves, but he's up there too. And Tony Gonsolin, that's the rotation in the playoffs. Sorry, that doesn't scare me enough. Where the Braves can go, Max Fried, Kyle Wright, Mike Soroka. Oh, hey, Tom Glavine might pitch in one of the games. Who knows?
Is John
And
Smoltz
then,
available
you
on the
know,
broadcast?
honorable
Right?
Tom, you want to come down for an inning? Smoltzy, how about you? I mean,
For
hey,
Pete's sake.
you can even put the Brewers down as a winner. Carlos Santana, Mark Canha, and then they add Andrew Chafin to the bullpen. So, Mark, you looked like you wanted to say something.
No. I was just making one of my stupid comments as usual.
Oh, okay. All right. Ev, do you have anything you would like to promote before we sign it off?
Last word on sports.com. We do great work over there. We cover everything: baseball, football, basketball, hockey, tennis, soccer, you name it. We cover everything. So we do great stuff. So check out if you have any time, check out last word on sports.com. We're just coming off a great trade deadline coverage. So last word on sports.com. I'm a writer, editor of the Mets, and I cover the Baltimore Ravens too for last word on sports.com. So
Do I hear a new blitzer coming on?
Ooh, who knows? Pat, you want to give him the socials?
Yeah,
I was wondering if he was awake.
I'm still
You
awake.
want to give the
trust me.
social?
We're here on YouTube. Search the Sports Insanity Network. SIN Real for network Twitter. SIN Real Insanity for the podcast. Website www.thesportsinsanitynetwork.com to keep up with all the blogs and planes, trains, and automobiles, as Rifkin would say.
Yeah. So,
Well,
Evan, thank you for joining us. For Patch and the old ops guy, I'm Mike Rifkin. Thank you for tuning in to Trade Deadline Recap Edition of the Batter Up podcast here on the Sports Insanity Network, sponsored by Halpern's Car